Hey everybody, Chris Ludwig here, Noonan Sports Specialist, here to talk about injury risk and what factors go into it. And no, it is not simply lifting too much weight or lifting a lot of weight or lifting with bad technique. Those things can all be a part of it and go into the equation of injury risk, but those aren't the only reasons why someone would get injured. Now that goes without saying, we here in the gym are going to do our best to try to avoid getting injuries and making sure our clients stay safe, but there is always a non-zero risk of an injury. And so here's some of the factors that go into why someone might get injured, specifically with exercise and weightlifting. Now there are two things that go into the risk equation of an injury, right? So we have stress. So and that deals just with exercising, workouts, stress of an exercise, right? So if we have a new exercise, we're teaching someone a new exercise, that's a new stress on the body that the body has to be able to adapt to. If you're adding more weight to an exercise, right? You grab a 20 kilo kettlebell versus a 12 kilo kettlebell, that stress on the body is automatically a little bit higher. If we add more reps to an exercise, so instead of 8 reps, we're now going to do 12 reps. Over the course of that 9, 10, 11, and 12th rep, the stress is going to be increased on the body. So again, exercise stress versus tolerance. And tolerance simply means tolerance of the body for that stress. So if you're used to an exercise, if you're used to the amount of weight you're using, if you're used to the amount of reps you're doing, your tolerance and your stress are going to be about even. So your risk of injury is fairly low. Now, when it comes to tolerance, there are things that can hinder tolerance of the body, right? So fatigue. If it's the end of the workout and we've already got 45 minutes of working out in, your body is a little fatigued. If you just had a really hard workout the day before, your body is coming in a little fatigued. If you didn't get very good sleep last night, the body is coming in a little fatigued. That's going to lower our body's tolerance for stress or exercise. Coming in with mental or emotional stress, that is a stress on the body, and that can manifest itself with physical stress, and the tolerance to exercise is going to be lower. Exposure to movement, what this simply means is the better you are at a movement, the higher tolerance for that movement you have. So if I've been doing deadlifts for 10 years and I've done it enough, my tolerance for deadlifts is going to be pretty high. And that goes without saying, that's where the technique portion comes in, right? People talk about good technique and bad technique. Technically, there is no such thing as good or bad technique because every exercise we're just telling you arbitrarily how to lift a weight. What we're trying to do is get you to lift that weight consistently. So if you deadlift with the same technique 10,000 times, your tolerance for that specific deadlift is going to be really good. If we taught you how to deadlift very, very poorly, but with low enough weight, low enough reps, and then taught you to do that 10,000 times, eventually your tolerance for that bad deadlift would be enough where you could get away with it. So simply exposure to the movement or your consistency with the movement is what's going to affect that tolerance. And that's why when weight goes way up, stress goes way up, but as well, typically that's when we see your normal technique, the way you've always done it, typically kind of deteriorates a little bit. So your tolerance for the movement goes down. That is what's going to increase injury risk. So again, it's balancing stress versus tolerance. If it's a new exercise, we're probably going to start with very minimal weight because we don't want that stress to go too high. We're going to start with a manageable amount of reps because we don't want that stress to go too high. If someone's coming in feeling really sore, if someone's coming in with very little sleep, if they've got a lot of stress from work or home or whatever, or again, it's a new movement to them, we want to keep that into account where we don't want the exercise stress to be too high, because that's where our injury risk gets increased. If you go too high, too much stress for your body's tolerance, that's not guaranteeing you're going to get injured. It's just simply saying your risk of injury is too high. And I'm not going to sit here and say, here are the exact numbers that are going to go into stress and the exact numbers that are going to tolerance to say, you're obviously going to get injured doing this. It's simply saying, if you're doing a new exercise, if you're increasing the weight, if you're doing more reps, that's more stress from that exercise on the body. If you're coming in fatigued, or it's the end of the workout, if you're coming in with mental emotional stress, if that weight is high and your technique starts to get altered, or you haven't had enough exposure to that movement where your technique isn't consistent, your tolerance to that movement and that exercise is going to be less. So thinking more about the factors that go into injury versus just saying bad technique or I lifted a lot of weights. Things to consider coming into the gym. If you are coming in fatigued, if you are coming in with mental stress, those things have to be mentioned, they have to be known, because we probably aren't going to push the exercise stress as much as we might normally. We don't always have to add 5 pounds to every single exercise to make it a good workout. We just have to balance these two things and get you leaving the gym feeling good.